Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth This Week. For the past month or so, we've been focusing on our schools here in town, and we've done the elementary and one of them, and we've done the high school, and we've done the middle school, and today we're going to the bridge. We're going to the top of it all, and that's the superintendent's office. We're very pleased to welcome Anna C. Riley, our superintendent of schools, and Chris DiIuro, the Director of Finance.
Nice to be here.
He said I could mispronounce his name, but not his title. And Chris, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
The budget's completed, such as it is, and now it's being presented and examined and analyzed. Anna, give our viewers a sense of how the budget is developed. When does it sort of start? And
Sure. So we actually start budgeting early in November. We start with preliminary reviews of what's going on with the current budget so that we have a baseline for moving forward with our new budget. We start meeting with the principals, the various directors and department heads so that we can start to accumulate all the information that we need as we get to the budget building process. It's a very detailed, I think, and rigorous process over several months. When we start to get to a working document of what our budget is going to look like, kind of that skeleton of the budget, we work with the subcommittee on finance from the school committee, and we invite them to our meetings with the administrative staff as we review all of those budgets, because we want them to kind of work through the process with us. And really for us this year, it's the first time Chris and I are building a budget together, and so we had to figure out how we work together.
That's a sound approach, I think, in the past, and maybe with some other towns still. It's sort of like, okay, here's the number this year. What? But I think the more that people who pay the bills can appreciate the sort of rigor that you go through, and it's complicated too. As I recall, it's not just a number, but it's a whole series of accounts that have to be developed. So let's look at the thick book of budget now. We don't have it here, but it includes all of the needs for students, and you're driven, I think, to some extent by the core curriculum, by the child left behind thing. Is that still?
Yes,
is that
it's
still
still a
kicking
thing.
around? And is the race to the top still racing?
No, the race to the top part is over, but
Okay.
ESCA is waiting to be reauthorized, but
And
we
then the
still
part
operate
tests,
under it.
and
Sure.
there are just so many things that will impact on you. How do you set the priorities for the budget and the spending this year?
Sure. So I think that this is the thing that probably you're talking about varies from town to town and from school department to school department. But for me, it's I just don't leave it to my business manager to say, here's your number for next year. You tell me how you want to spend it. Our budget's really a mixture of different budgeting approaches. In some places it is a needs-based budget. In other places we started with a zero-based budget. But the guiding force for building a budget, in my mind, should always be the strategic improvement plan. How are we going to improve student achievement? I think it's really important to show the community what their return on investment is. And the way we measure that in schools is through student achievement.
Yeah.
So that's our profits.
Clearly you have, I was going to say, an unusual approach from some of my experiences in the state and in other states, and that is that you have a plan and a direction, and so you make sure that your budget always reflects that direction you're going to, rather than, I guess, in some towns, it's all makeup and what's broken and what do we have to fix, and that drives it this year, and we can't do the roof this year, and so forth and so on. Brings it up another side question, Chris, and this is where you get a chance to talk. How do you function as, what is the role of a director of finance in a town? Is that a fair question?
Sure, yeah. So number one, drive the budget process, working with the superintendent and the other administrators, taking care of all of the accounting and other finance issues. In my case, also facilities. All the school grounds and facilities are under my purview. I'm picking up actually athletics as of the last meeting. And I've had IT in the past that's recently moved over to our assistant superintendent. And we manage the lunch program and the transportation programs.
Ask for a raise. No, I asked that question because I want the folks to know that, behind the title and the person is an enormous amount of responsibility. Every one of those, as I recall, transportation, for example, can be pretty extensive in terms of time investment and scheduling, and if you go out to bid and so forth and so on, it's an enormous, and that's just one part of your thing.
Well, we're actually going out to bid right now. It's funny you would mention that, and I actually failed to mention that human resources that is actually something that I'm in charge of as well, and that's quite a
Don't tell him he needs a raise.
I was going to say, Anna, what is it that you do?
Everything else.
No, I'm just kidding.
I
it's
think
a
that's
great job.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference in a school district versus looking at in a corporation what finance looks like, or in a town side, because we really work as a team. It's really important to me that Chris sees the education side of what we're doing, so that he's not stuck in a place where he only knows the numbers and the transportation routes and all of that. It's important for him to see how that has an implication in the classroom. So Chris is also a part of our walkthroughs through classrooms and observing, teaching, and learning.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I stick him in everything we do.
So you're getting quite an education yourself, because you come from that thing called the private sector.
I do, and Anna has included me in all of those things, and it's been a wonderful learning experience, and it does help connect the dots to say,
Oh, it does.
Oh, these budget dollars are actually accomplishing this goal, right?
You're talking the
you get to
same
see it.
language, and that's so important, because folks out there might have a bias against finance and budgeting and accounting, which is sort of just a bunch of numbers. Some people like numbers and they play with them and move them around, but unless they're attached as they are here, it doesn't mean anything. The strategic plan, why don't you, Anna, dwell a little bit on what it is and how it drives everything.
People are going to really know it, because every time I come on your show, I make sure to talk a little bit about what we're doing with the strategic plan. So the strategic plan has 5 guiding objectives. And when we looked at the budget, we wanted to make sure that we were putting money and time and resources towards achieving those goals. So the first objective is always about rigor. How do we make sure that all students have a guaranteed curriculum that's rigorous? And so a couple of ways that we're doing that in this budget is by bringing special ed in-house. That had a dual role. Not only were we looking at funding for special ed, but we were also looking at how we could improve the quality of education for students in our special education program. Another big piece that we added to the budget for next year is a district-wide assessment, so that we can have a way to look at our district, to have a district dashboard, if you would, at different times during the year, where we could see how we were doing and what growth was happening over the year within our district. The second objective is around making sure all of our students are college and career ready. And so, in addition to the rigor and what we're doing, what else are we doing to make sure our students will be prepared? And we started this year and we built it into the budget for next year. All sophomores and juniors take the PSAT in school during the day, paid for by the district. We are purchasing a system called Naviance, which is for parents, the guidance department, and our students to start, as soon as they're freshmen, looking at interest inventories and what kind of colleges and universities might be for them. As you know, the choices are so broad out there that we need ways to help to support our students and their families in narrowing the scope of that. Next year is also our accreditation for NEASC. Every 10 years, our high school gets reviewed.
I remember
that does come
it
with
well.
oh yes, and that comes with a $20,000 or so price tag. So we had to incorporate that in our budget, and then we also put some dollars into our our career and tech program, we have an engineering program that we're growing, and that we hope in its third year will be approved as a CTE program, and will enhance our STEAM initiative, our science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics program. In terms of human capital, which is our goal number 3, how do we keep our human capital in the district, and how do we support their growth? We've built in 3 professional days into the budget, in addition to the other professional development we do. We're including 3 instructional coaches that'll focus on mentoring and inducting new teachers, because we want to train them and keep them. So we want to support that. And then in terms of human capital, we're always looking at our enrollment. As you know, there's been an impact by the birth rate on all of the enrollments, and that's really across the country. It's not unique to Rhode Island, and certainly not unique to Portsmouth, so we're always monitoring enrollment and our staffing needs. Our 4th goal is, how do we harness support from all of our stakeholders, teachers, parents, the community, and so public relations is really important. So doing things like Portsmouth This Week, and it's why we're having all our schools on. We really want to make sure that folks know about what's happening in our community schools. Our website, we're working on improving that and continuing to share information about what goes on in our district. All of our schools have Twitter accounts and are trying to push out information as much as they can to share with the public. And then finally, goal number 5 really wraps up the other 4 and says, so how do we make sure we have the resources and the facilities and the technology to make all those other things happen? And I think Chris is going to share quite a bit with you around what we're doing to make sure that the environment for our students supports all of this learning.
Yeah, it's quite a... I went to the website of the Hathaway School, and right there on the front page is rigorous. And I said, oh, for an elementary school? So now I know where she got it. Rigorous, yeah. But also the use of technology and the public outreach and all those things are not only here, but they're out in the field. And I'm pleased to see that there's the tentacles reach out, and that's good. Chris, you want to expand on what Anna was saying? She's
Sure, I can maybe talk a little bit about the capital piece, because I think that's really
yes,
important.
please do.
Sure. So this past year we went through a full facilities review. We hired an architectural engineering firm to come in and help us with that. And as part of that, they issued a report that indicated that there was about $19 million worth of repairs and maintenance and upgrades that needed to happen in our 4 schools and admin building. Now, not all of those are high priority. Some are not. Some are. We went through a very thoughtful process of building a 5-year capital plan that took that $19 million and broke it down into chunks that we thought we needed to accomplish during that 5-year plan. Clearly, the health safety issues are the ones that kind of bubbled to the forefront and became our number 1 priorities. We did this not only as an admin team, but we worked with our capital subcommittee of the school committee, and then we actually brought the full 5-year plan to our school committee for approval. And in our budget this year, we're asking for funding of the first year of that 5-year capital plan. We want to attack these things now before they become critical issues and have to do it in the moment. So we want to have a rational approach.
Yeah.
So in our first year, we're asking for $489,696. Again, that's year 1 of our 5-year plan. Some of the big items in there, so the Hathaway roof needs to be replaced, and we're kind of chunking that out in pieces, and we'd like to do a big piece of that in fiscal year 16. There's also some roofing at Melville that we want to do. There's some paving at the high school. There are asbestos tiles in some of our schools that are safe, but it's good practice to take them out, get rid of them in a rational manner. And we've been actually doing that over the last several years. We want to keep going until they're all gone. So we want to get some of that as well. And another big one is our Hathaway school is the only school that doesn't have an emergency generator. And now that all the schools are sprinkled, so they have sprinklers for fire safety, if a generator were to go down during a major storm and those sprinklers were to freeze and burst, schools would be in big trouble. So we really think we want to get that. In this past year, when we had the big storms come through with all the snow, we did go out and rent emergency generators and put them on site just in case that happened. We want to really have one that's in the school. So again, this is our first year of a 5-year plan. We think it's very thoughtful. We're really hoping to get support to make this happen in a rational manner.
Well, the old expression is pay me now or pay me later.
That's correct.
You know, you have trouble sometimes selling people to the idea that maintenance prevents, you know, more serious corrections later, and that's the approach that you've taken. And health and safety too. That's a good hook. That'll sell in Chicago. Well, that's a good thing. Let's talk about special ed. That's a big item that's gotten a lot of time and a lot of thought and a lot of analysis. What I read, I guess, when the whole discussion started, when was it, in the fall, about going it alone and saving money. And I remember a $50,000 figure thrown out, and a lot of people said, wow, let's do it, you know. But I think your approach, Anna, is that, and you're quoted in the papers saying it's not we're just going to save money, but we're going to emphasize we think we can deliver better services. And share with the viewers, you know, special ed. I've been around long enough. I remember when special ed in Providence was putting everybody with a problem in one room. That was special ed. But of course, we've grown a long way from that, and able now to take care of a lot of pretty sophisticated needs. Why don't you tell us a bit of what those needs are going to be and how you're going to address them?
Sure. So when we decided that we were going to leave the region, one of the first things that we did was hire our own director of special ed. She's actually the director of pupil personnel services. So like Chris, she wears many hats. She's not only the director of special ed, but we also have her working with really all of the social, emotional needs of all of our students. So she will supervise our nurses. She will supervise guidance social workers and school psychologists pre-K to 12. There are quite a few things in her job description that tie into supporting students at that social emotional level. We have many wonderful special educators in our district. I think what we're going to provide for them as a service, as an improved level of service for next year, is their director, their supervisor will have a direct line to them. They'll be on site. They'll be in our district. We will have our own school psychologists and social workers who work only in Portsmouth, who can support our students and really get to know their cases and get to know the students, the teacher, and the families, but because they'll spend all their time with us. They won't be split among the different regions. We thought there would be a cost savings, and Chris has done a lot of investigative work in terms of the finances in how the allocations were distributed. And so we always felt that there was some money in the way the formula was arrived at. And so that did prove to be true when we completed all of our budgeting and reviewed with our new director for special ed. We did have quite a large savings of about $400,000 in the budget, going from being in the region to
You sold it on $50,000, and now you come up with $400,000. Wow, what does that say? That's not a question. That's a rhetorical question.
Sure.
Okay. Well, when I read what's her name, Colwell?
Lisa Colwell.
Lisa Colwell.
Correct.
I have half expected to see director of special ed, but I see pupil personnel services, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting. You've she's working you guys too hard." But she hands you a broom one day, resign. But that's interesting, Lisa, Anna, the way that you're combining those jobs that really lend support to all those aspects of your program, and you like your special ed teachers in town. And the other thing, as I mentioned to you earlier, is that those services involve the psychologists and psychometrists and so many other people That's a very difficult area that I remember, from the administrative point of view.
Sure.
From the services point of view, it's good, it's necessary, and it's there. But trying to figure out how many folks that you need to serve, and then having people who move in, and suddenly you have a different kind of service thing and budget thing is a real challenge, but seems like you're hitting it head on. And I think that it's obviously a selling point on doing it yourself, of having immediate contact.
Sure.
There's a lot of talk in the state all the time about combining departments, combining this and combining that. But you know that the downside is going to be when I want help and service, it's not going to be as easy as it used to be. Oh, that building's right down the street, or that phone is right there. It's going to be, we'll put you on a list and make you take a ticket like you do at the meat market. Well, anyway, talk a bit about your reductions in departments. I think there was 13 positions all told that were reduced from last year.
So and that's a mix of things. So some of those will be some retirements that we're not filling. Some of them are positions from the previous budget that were never filled, that we're not going to fill, and we've eliminated from the budget. Some are due to enrollment. We do have some decline in enrollment. And some are due to the special education insourcing, where we did not need some of the staff, because we used to house students from the other towns as well, and now we won't do that, and so we did have a reduction. So it's kind of a mix of all of those things in terms of the overall reduction. However, when we reduce those, we are careful to make sure we will still be able to maintain quality of service, and that we're still doing all the things that we need to do. So even though we have some reductions, it doesn't mean that we're scraping down to bare bones and we're not going to have the staffing we need, because although we've eliminated some positions, we have added some positions to the budget. Through our grant, our IDEA grant, which lets us hire staff to improve intervention to students, we'll be bringing on 2 interventionists, one at the middle school, one at the high school. We currently have 1 instructional coach. Next year we'll have 3 instructional coaches. So we are still doing the important work.
Are those like, what do they do?
So the instructional coaches work with, they do a series of things. So one thing is that they will work with all new teachers. We're required, under the BEP to support new staff. We're going to be doing that by providing them a coach. They will work with the new teachers in their classrooms, helping them establish rituals and routines, supporting them in any areas that they might need help with. They'll also work in 3 disciplines, so we'll have 3 coaches. One will be a literacy coach, one will be a math coach, and one will be a science coach. These are very skilled people who will provide ongoing professional development in the moment. So instead of going to the old-fashioned, you remember you went to a workshop and you went there all day and you went back to your classroom and you tried to bring back something that you learned, and you might remember 5 minutes of what you did over the course of that workshop.
And then you couldn't get a hold of that person anymore.
Right, it was over. It was that one. So this is the opposite of that. This is that person provides professional development to the staff and then is available during the day to come into classrooms and model for teachers or support teachers who want to implement those practices but are struggling in some fashion and want the expertise and advice of a peer who's got that expertise.
Are those people elementary, middle people more than high school people?
K through 8.
Oh, K through 8.
And that's the other piece. K through 8, they'll help build that through line for that transition time from 3rd grade to 4th grade, so that we have some consistency.
Well, those support people, that's marvelous, that you have somebody doing that kind of thing, because I think in so many times past it's been, okay, we've hired you, your room is number 6 at the end of the hall, call me if there's a fire, and that's it, and they're left on their own. But teaching and learning has grown so far, and the demands put on teachers and administrators to deliver the goods that you need help.
Sure.
Teaching is not so easy, is it?
I think it's one of the most difficult professions. It's always evolving. You always have to learn. I say I learn something new every day. There's something new to learn about the work that we're doing.
Things change, and your population or the people in the room. One lesson plan doesn't work. Sometimes from week to week or year to year, so you need professional development. Talk a little bit about the athletic thing, Chris.
Sure.
I didn't. That item kind of surprised me because I didn't think there was a problem with athletics in terms of funding, but you told the committee that we'll keep all the programs and so forth and so on, and there won't be any chop. How did that develop?
So athletics is a topic that has come up at a number of our school committee meetings and seems to be a recurring item. And one of the things as we put this budget together that became pretty clear is that athletics overall, between the middle and the high school, was not funded 100%. There were some sports that were funded 100%. Some were funded not at all and relied totally on fundraising from parents or booster groups.
Yes.
Some had a mix. And what we said was, let's see if we can, initially in our first draft of our budget, can we fund all athletics, all costs, whether it's coaching costs, transportation costs, equipment costs. And if we can't, then we'll have to make some choices and peel back. Well, what we found was as we went through this process, we could do that. So we're no longer sort of picking, if you will, winners and losers. Well, we'll fund this sport, but we won't fund that sport. And let's take some of the burden off those parents and fund all sports equally. And we were able to do that this year in this budget.
That's terrific. If you read the paper, the Providence paper, you see that a lot of communities are really up against the wall with funding athletics, and in fact assess students. They do a head count. You want to play football, that'll cost you, take out the little chart. And things like hockey are so expensive. So again, what a plus for Portsmouth that you're able to fund that and keep them all. Well, we have about a minute left. What haven't we covered, Anna Riley?
Well, we haven't shared our benefit, our bottom line, so I think we should probably share that with the community.
Okay, sure. So I mean, we're really, really excited about our budget this year for a number of reasons, which we talked about today. It's aligned with our strategic plan. We're funding sports. We've included all of our technology capital. But probably the most important thing to a lot of probably your viewers right now and the residents of the town is we were able to do this without asking for an increase in our funding from the town. So we're asking to be level funded, which we think to accomplish all this and to be able to do that, we're really proud of that.
You should be. My experience in education over the years has been ask for more, ask for more. Everything is going up, ask for more. It sounds like my plumber. But we're glad to see that our people in town here, you and Chris, are doing a bang-up job with delivering a quality program and keeping an eye on that dollar. That's pretty important. Well, I want to thank you both for coming. I hope you enjoyed your session today, and I guess you have one more elementary teacher and special ed teacher. Until next time. This is Bob Poniatowski saying goodbye from Portsmouth This Week.